Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 78 of the Whatnauts review show, where each week we have a different story to talk about. Could be a comic book, could be a movie, an anime, manga, something else. We read it, watch it, do what we have to do. Come back here and talk about it. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined, as always, by Melissa Wilkinson. How are you, Melissa?
Me. I'm good, Kyle. I had a good shopping day yesterday.
Ooh, what'd you buy me?
I don't know. Do you want a new lipstick? Because that's what I bought myself.
Well, might not be
I love
my
shopping.
shade, but...
I love shopping. I like to physically get dressed up, get in my car, drive out, be among the people. I
Mhm.
had some great deals. I found exactly what I needed at cheaper than I thought I was going to get it.
That's always a good
And I'm
feeling.
on the road yesterday. I'm on a stoplight and I look, and in the lane next to me is a limo. And I'm very excited. So I wave at the limo, and the driver waves back. And I see him roll down his window, and I roll down mine. And he says, "Hi, where are you going today?" And I told him, "I'm going to Bed Bath and Beyond." And he said, "That's a great place to shop." And I said, "Where are you going?" And he says, "I'm done for the day."
There you go. That's a
And it
great
was just
feeling to
like
have.
a handful of seconds long, but it was a truly magical interaction.
That's
Like, if I would have
amazing.
bought things online, I wouldn't have had this.
That's amazing. I got my haircut yeah,
I
yesterday.
noticed.
But it wasn't the typical thing that I do. My roommate is my
Huh.
barber. I go to him, but he asked if I could be his like test model. He had a training class, and
Oh,
so
sure.
I got a haircut for free, which was super nice. But I wrote on Twitter, it was like, they think I'm a model. I fooled them. So that was good. It was fun. I had a good day. But we are not here to talk about shopping or haircuts or stuff like that. We are here to talk about American Vampire Volumes 1 and 2. And this is, I guess, the second episode in our horror month thing going on all October long. Last week we covered Bram Stoker's Dracula. So that was a fun one. I had
Mm.
never seen that film, but it was good. And
Neither.
your favorite spooky monster is vampires, or I guess are
Yes.
vampires. And so you ended up picking American Vampire for this week of
Hmm.
the pitches that I proposed. What drew you to this one besides the obvious? Hey, I like vampires.
I thought it'd be interesting to cover a similar topic 2 weeks in a row because a vampire is something. The mythology is
Hmm.
so rich, you can really like mix and match it any way you want. They can have any combination of powers. Maybe they're allergic to sunlight, maybe they're
Hmm.
not, maybe they turn into a bat, maybe they don't. So I wanted to do a direct 1 week after the other. Let's see how different people do vampires. And you told me
Okay.
it was set in the Old West. Like, that's interesting. I was intrigued by this tombstone sort of vampire story.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've heard of this comic plenty of times. It is one that I think a lot of people recommend of like, hey, whether you're just getting into comics or if you are specifically looking for horror comics, this is one that you should absolutely check out. But it had kind of been in my blind spot. I just never really picked it up. It had never
Mhm.
been on the top of my priority list. Um, but I'm glad we got to check it out. I ended up really
Yeah.
liking this. I think yeah, I ended up really liking it. I think my
Hmm.
biggest critique is just that I don't know if it completely found its footing just yet in those first two
Yeah.
volumes. Um, but I like where it's going. I like the whole premise. I like the whole idea
Hmm.
behind it. I think it'll uh, end up being a fantastic series, as I'm sure many of you out there already know.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I really dug the mythological aspects of this book.
Okay.
I like what it took. I like what it did with the vampire like bloodlines and the power structure and what they can do and what they can't do and what they're weak to.
Hmm.
Mythologically, I dug this a lot. Really nice take on the monster. Tone wise, it was a little gruesome for me. Not in that it's
Interesting.
like, oh, too much blood, too monstrous. Just like, I don't know, like everything's too dark. Everything's too
Hmm.
grim.
Interesting.
And I think that might be part of that's kind of the product of the time it was written in. This first volume is from 2010, which is just after the reign of Twilight and Vampire Diaries and things like that. And you read Stephen
These aren't your
King's forward, and
sparkly
it's like,
vampires.
vampires aren't heartthrobs. Vampires aren't cute boys next door. They're monsters. And I think it goes almost too hard into, oh, none of these are good people.
Yeah. Yeah, they are stone cold killers, I believe is what he had said in that.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you guys out there who might be wondering, this is a comic book series written by Scott Snyder with art by Raphael Albuquerque. And then it is kind of co-created in part by Stephen King. He ends up writing the origin story for like the main bad guy of the series, Skinner
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. But I think beyond that, I don't know if he really plays a part
Yeah, and
in this comic here.
I think the forward says that Scott Snyder had plotted out the origin story and like
Yeah,
it was just given to Stephen King to script out.
yeah, yeah. That is a good thing to note. But I think just having Stephen King's name attached to
Yeah.
the book, I think helps it out a ton in recommending it to people. Like, oh,
Hmm.
that guy that wrote all those books that we all know you like. You've seen it. You went and watched. I was gonna say what's the one that I'm thinking of? The Cat's Eye. I think it's a series of like short anthologies. Whatever. There's a
I
ton
think
of
that's the
Stephen
book he
King
wrote.
stuff
Yeah.
out there. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think if like in terms of recommending stuff, if I'm like, oh, Scott Snyder, a lot of people who don't know comics are going to be like, who? I don't know who Scott Snyder is. But they'll know who Stephen King is. And then you can
Hmm.
be like, oh, but then also Scott Snyder had a fantastic run on Batman. He does some fantastic work.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think this is one I think you can easily recommend to people. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting this to be as much of a crime book as
Me
it was.
either.
I was expecting this to have a little bit more horror, like a tint to it, and lean more on that and be like a horror
Hmm.
western. But it's a horror comic that ends up being more of a western crime comic. Just and the
Yes.
characters are mainly vampires and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I liked it in that sense because you know me, I'm big on the crime books and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
was expecting a little bit more horror stuff, but we might get there eventually
Yeah.
because this was only the first two volumes. Uh, so let's do a little bit of a synopsis, and then we'll do housekeeping and
Hmm.
get into spoilers and stuff like that. So this, as we mentioned, starts out in the American West. And I guess to start off the book, I guess we kind of have to mention Skinner Sweet first and foremost.
Yeah.
He, it sounds like they were robbing this train. There was a big train accident within this
Hmm.
fight that happened. This guy got killed, but in the midst of that, he, I guess, ingested some blood of a vampire and ended up becoming a vampire
Hmm.
himself. However, He is the first in a new breed of vampire. They make note
Yeah.
that as time goes on, these vampires will start to change. They're a little bit different. The ones over here are maybe a little bit different from the ones over there, and stuff like that. So that was
Mm-hmm.
neat.
Yes.
Fast forward a little bit, and we now see a character named Pearl, and she is a young and aspiring actress. And she is about to be introduced to some supposedly important men who can help further her career, and it ends up
Mm-hmm.
going very, very wrong when she finds out that all of those men are also vampires and they want to turn her into a
Yep.
vampire as well. And I don't remember it. Did Skinner do something to her as well to make her be one of these American vampires? I don't remember off the top of my
Yes.
head how
Yes.
that worked
He
out.
I don't remember exactly how, but yeah, she ingests some of his blood too. Because this is the 1920s LA now, and he's just hanging around. He's an immortal vampire from the old West times through to the roaring 20s. He's just around. He's lurking around. And
Yeah.
he encounters her and he turns her into a vampire. So now she is the second in this line of these new American vampires that have no weakness to the sun, and they're extra
Yes.
powerful and extra monstrous. Like their jaws unhinged and they got a million more teeth.
Yeah. Scary stuff. So all of that happens, but as it does, then we start to see kind of the politics come in. There's the older vampires from Europe, and they don't really like the Skinner
Hmm.
Sweet guy, and this new breed of vampire is starting to cause them problems and stuff like that. And then there's other people after them, vampire hunters and stuff like that. So it's this big mix of like vampire faction versus vampire faction, as well as vampire hunters in the mix, and it's
Hmm.
pretty fascinating.
Yeah, jumps around in time. The first volume is the Old West in the 1920s, and the third volume is pretty much all set the same year. It's all in like 1930s Las Vegas.
Yeah, yeah,
So
they are
all
building
throughout American history.
a big dam out there. So I'm excited to see where this book goes. I think it has a lot of
Hmm.
fascinating elements
Yeah.
to it. But a little bit of housekeeping for you guys before we get into spoilers and such. I mentioned last week we covered Bram Stoker's Dracula for our October-filled horror month, or horror-filled October month, whatever.
Filled with the spirit of October.
Right. So we will be here all month of October doing horror stuff. But you guys can find this podcast as well as our other podcasts like the Captain's Log and the Reactor Core on the whatnauts.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. All you have to do is search the Whatnauts, and we will be there. If you like what we do, patreon.com/the Whatnauts is where you can support. You can get episodes early. You can get exclusive episodes. And many more. We also want to give a big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier. So thank you to Sam and to Christine for helping us out, keeping the mics on. We appreciate and love you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's all for housekeeping. So let's get into spoilers.
Yeah.
Woo. Okay. Spoiler territory.
Hmm.
I kind of want to go. Where do I want to talk with this? I kind of want to talk about Pearl.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think she was a good character. She
Yeah.
she was the second of this new breed of American vampire, but she's kind of caught up in all of this. She did. It seems like she doesn't really want to be a part of it, but ends up kind of being dragged in by Skinner Sweet. She kind of escapes, but it sounds like things are kind of she now has her own problems and politics that she has to deal with. So it seems like we have
Hmm.
these two plots, right? We have Pearl's
Yeah.
story and we have Skinner's story. Excuse me, and they kind of go their own separate ways for a bit there.
Yeah.
But I liked Pearl's story the most, I think.
Yeah. I did like her as a character. I like that she doesn't spend too much time angsting over being a vampire now. I think because
Mm-hmm.
it's such a massive turn for her. And it is a turn where she's been betrayed by a lot of people. She's got enough of this burning vengeance in her and
Yeah.
bloodlust in her, both literal and metaphorical, that kind of powers her through this initial like psychological transformation. Then she's like, oh, oh, I'm very powerful. Like she knows she is the new most powerful vampire in America, being the newest, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
The premise of this book is not just vampires being different based on like the culture nation they're from, which I think is interesting. Like these original vampires are all European vampires, and this is the first vampire in America. So like there's as you travel to different areas, yeah, I really like the premise that it's like, well, of course not every vampire every part of the world would be the same. That's kind of silly. They have
Yeah.
different weaknesses and things. So she is the newest of these vampires also. It's partially cultural difference and partially like evolution. The
Mm-hmm.
newest one is the most powerful one. So that kind of gets her through this transformation. Then she's like, well, I still want to go live a quiet life. Henry, come on. We're
Yeah.
buying a house. I like that she's really set on getting what she wants, and she does get it. She gets her quiet little cute cabin in the California woods.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but then like she really has this kind of it's more of a protective nature than like an offensive vampire. Like I'm out to hunt
Yeah.
humans and kill and stuff like that. It's more just like she is using her powers to protect what she has and what she loves, and I like that. But at the same time, she's not totally good at the she's
Yeah, like
not the like pristine hero of this story. She's not the like
mm,
main protagonist that always does good. After all, she is a vampire, which has this like evil about it, and she mentions that she's like, I can feel it inside me. Like there is this evil
mm,
inside me that is just waiting for the right moment.
mm,
Which is I think in terms of horror, like that is I think one of the most horrific things about this book, or just about
yeah.
vampires in general. Um like I guess I never really thought about people trying to stave off the infection, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um I put that in
Yeah.
air quotes, but like, yeah, this idea of like they're trying to fight it off like a cold, or hey, I can feel this thing inside me, and
Yeah.
I'm just not acting on the things that it's telling me to do, but it's waiting for the right time, and there will be a time when I can't do a thing, and it's just I'm gonna be full vampire, and it's gonna be horrific. And so I think that like
Mm-hmm.
impending doom is just like, uh-oh, something's coming.
Yeah.
Something bad is about to happen. Oh.
Yeah, and she takes her vengeance missions very seriously. She really takes those people down in a very gruesome way. But then she is kind of committed to, I'm going to try and live this quiet, peaceful life. Presumably, she's just out there biting livestock to live. But yeah, when it comes
Mhm.
back again, she is all the way on. Like, if she needs to do any vampire
Oh yeah.
action, it is deep, serious, violent vampire action.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think she also comments of just like, I forgot how much I like this.
Yeah.
Um So I wonder if her story is going to end up being a more tragic story. Um,
Mm-hmm.
where yeah, she does have the quiet life. She does have the guy that she really likes. But as we know from this book, she also has her former best friend,
Yeah.
who's now also a vampire, uh, like hunting her down to get revenge. Because I guess her best friend idolized her, and then
Mm-hmm.
figured out that she became a vampire. So she became a vampire herself by like cutting herself and using some of the blood that was left behind. I think to like
Yeah.
put that in her, um, and yeah, I she was they had a fight at the start, and I think that was kind of where the beef started. But it ends up spiraling into this whole thing of yeah, she's like hunting her down, and the book does a really nice fake out where you like she finds the house that they live in, and you're just like, oh no, this is not going to be good. And meanwhile, Pearl and Henry are on their way home, and yeah, like they're just like, oh, we can't wait to get home and relax and heal and like just not have to worry about a thing. And then the book does this nice fake out that, oh, it happens to be that these two storylines are kind of taking place in two different times. Uh, Pearl's
Yeah.
story that you had seen was maybe like 2 months ago, and
Mm-hmm.
then the stuff from, I forget her name, but the best friend, that's the stuff that's happening
Hattie.
now. Yeah, yeah. And she gets to the house, and there's old people living there, and it's the wrong couple,
Yeah.
and she's
How
like,
long was
boo,
I
ah.
gone? I slept too long.
Yeah. And she scares these old people, and she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I was looking for someone else. But yeah, I liked that because it really builds up this tension of just like, oh no,
Mm.
it's about to go down right now, and then just like, oh no, not right now, we'll take a step back. So what
Yeah,
did
I
oh
like that twist a
go
lot.
ahead.
I think Pearl is the character that is the best off out of all these stories in any of these time periods.
Mm-hmm.
Pearl, when we leave her at the end of volume 2, is doing the best. And I really hope she does get to hold on to that. She'll fight for it tooth and nail, of course. It won't be easy,
Right.
but I don't want her to lose that because the rest of this whole story is so tragic. Like Pearl and Henry are the one bright spot to hold on to. Every other sweet thing gets corrupted. Like I initially really liked the relationship and the friendship between Hattie and Pearl
Yeah.
until you found out that Hattie has betrayed her and sold her into, this ring of vampire businessmen.
Yeah.
And every other couple in the story, every other relationship, like somebody dies, something terrible happens. And it is kind of, I can see where the story is going. I imagine the same would happen to Pearl, but it's like, can we get one? Can we get one win, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't imagine Henry would last very long. Uh
Mm-hmm.
or I don't want to see him become a vampire. And like they
Mm.
make it a point too of like, hey, don't turn me into one. You can feed off of me all you want and all you need, but don't actually turn me into one unless we actually need it. And
Mm-hmm.
like I don't want to see that happen. You're right. Like I'm rooting for Pearl to kind of keep this like small crumb of a happy life, right? Just
Yeah.
get away from all these politics and all these factions that are hunting each other down, which I guess in the first two volumes we don't really understand all of it. We just know that these older vampires don't like the newer vampires, and that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what we have to take it at.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
I I do like the tension of the way vampirism is passed along in these stories
Mm-hmm.
because it's not the vampire bites you, and it's not the vampire bites you and you get some of the vampire's blood too. It seems like it is only you get the vampire's blood in you, which can be so accidental. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's what happens to Jim Book, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I forget if it's
Exactly.
Skinner Sweet or which vampire it is, but he gets blood just dripped on him and it goes into like his eye. I think it just needs to get into your body somehow. And that's enough to taint him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Like, the threat that it's not a choice you make to infect somebody, it could be an absolute accident. Or what happened with Hattie, where she stabbed Pearl and then she kept the bloody knife and like used it to stab herself later and get the blood into
Yeah.
her body that way. There were so many people that could just become vampires without you knowing of it or meaning to make them vampires.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since we kind of know that medical world back then was not the greatest or the most
Yeah.
hygienic and stuff like that. So that would be fascinating. One thing they haven't covered in terms of like passing on the
Mm-hmm.
vampire virus or whatever it is because there's the character of Abelina Book, and it
Yes.
doesn't say she's a vampire, but it also
No,
hasn't
it's
addressed it.
Felicia.
Wasn't her name Abilene
Isn't
or
it her
something?
daughter Felicia?
I could be
Abelina's the
completely wrong. Let me see if.
So Abelina's the one who slept with Book because he's like, I need you to kill me. I am a vampire now. I cannot fight this off. I need you to kill me. There's a new moon tonight. It was a moonless night. This is when I'm at my weakest. And she's like, okay, I'll do this for you, but I need something from you first. I love you and I want some of you to hold on to. Sleep with me first. I've been charting my fertility periods. It's now. I could probably get a baby out of this.
Yes, you
So
are
that's
right.
Felicia.
It is
And we
Felicia
don't
Book.
know yet, ooh, what vampiristic uh, abilities or attributes does she have from her dad being a vampire?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, is she half vampire? Is she full
Mm-hmm.
vampire because her father was, and that blood is now in her? Um, is
Mm-hmm.
her mom? I guess her mom died, but um,
No.
God,
Abilene
I'm
is
so
still
confused.
alive. We see her in
That's
volume
right.
3. It was Abelina's mom who died. There is also a series of dead wives running throughout these two volumes. Like, Book's fiance dies. Abelina's mom dies in childbirth. And then
That's
there's
right.
um the sheriff in the third volume, his adopted dad's wife died years before he was adopted, and then his
Dead
own
Wives
wife dies. Like,
Club.
just don't get married. You'll perish. And
Yeah,
it's, which
that's
isn't to
funny.
say that there aren't like very forward active female characters in the story. It's just like we have these series of set dressing wives that some of the male heroes have. Like, and he's got a wife back home. He has to get home to. Oh, no.
Just
Whoops. There
just
she
kidding.
goes.
She's dead. Yeah. Yeah. That's a weird thing that I guess I didn't really think of when reading that. But yeah, they don't do this whole thing of like, hey, is there such thing as half vampires, or
Yeah,
is it
we're not there yet.
passed on through childbirth? We don't know. So I'm wondering if that will somehow come up later on in the book, because there's this whole the vassals of the morning star, and
Hmm.
those are the vampire hunters, um, which I guess what is a vassal. What is the definition of a vassal?
Oh, oh God. It's
Vassal.
one of those words that when I read it, I'm like,
Yes, I
sure,
mean
I get
vassal.
it. But if you, as you were asking me now to actually tell you specifically what it means, I don't know. I ain't got
It's
it.
a holder of land by feudal tenure on conditions of homage and allegiance. A vassal, a person or country in a subordinate position to another. So the vassals of the Morning Star would just be the servants of the devil, which
Who
I
knows?
I feel like that's already what vampires are. Am I
Well, maybe
wrong in
it's
saying
they are
that?
of the Morning Star in that maybe they are of the Morning Star in that that is their entire focus. Like, they're not worried about anything that is not vampiric or demonic. You know, they're not gonna raise money to rebuild a school that burned down or anything like
Well,
that. They have
sure.
no other purpose.
Well,
They have one
sure, but
thing.
like,
They're not out there to stop just like a regular human murderer or anything like
right?
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They're not
yeah.
like a general just organization that develop vampires. It's like we have one mission.
Yeah, no, no, I agree with that, but like I guess considering last week we watched Dracula, and there's this whole idea
Yeah.
of when he got this curse on him, it was because he rejected God, right? And he was like, I
Yeah.
curse you and this and that. And he stabs the big old statue and it just starts
Hmm.
gushing blood and it gets in his mouth. And he's like, the blood is the life, blah, blah, blah. Um, and it is this very demonic thing. It is this very satanic thing. They don't mention it by like, oh yeah, he's now like
Yeah.
serving Satan, but like that's kind of the picture it paints, and so I'm confused now as to where they get this name, the Vassals of the Morning Star, because the Morning Star is the devil in biblical
Hmm.
text, and so if they are like servants of the devil, I feel like that would put them on. I mean, hey, maybe it's a war for like, oh, I'm assistant to the regional manager, or I am the assistant regional manager, right? And they're both like fighting for that top spot. It's Andy versus White, right? It might be something like that. Hey, if we kill all the vampires, we'll be the number
We're next in
two.
line.
Yeah, right. Um, who knows? I could be completely wrong with that, but I thought that was an interesting name.
Yeah, I want to learn a lot more about this vampire mythology. Like, we are seeing the new vampires here in America. They
Mm-hmm.
must be making new vampires in, like, Germany. What are those ones doing? Because, like I said
In
earlier, seems
Japan,
like the vampirism and, like, what your weaknesses are and your abilities and your powers, it morphs a little bit based on just age and evolution, and also, like, where you're from, you know, what your lineage is.
yeah,
So what is a new vampire in America necessarily stronger than a new vampire out of China or
yeah.
somewhere
Who
like
knows?
that?
Who knows?
We've got a whole world of vampires we have to get to. We've just seen like such a little fraction of it.
What did you think of the? I think Stephen King brings it up in the foreword to the book, where he mentions this whole idea of a new breed of vampire being the American vampire, and the parallels that has to just this idea of the American dream. Like they want new opportunities and power and stuff like that, right? And we have these rich, wealthy industrialists who are, trying to tame the American West and stuff like that. And here are these vampires that are doing a similar thing of like wanting to gain power and keep the power they have. And here's these newfangled Americans stirring things up and causing problems for the Europeans.
I don't know. Yeah, Skinner is he's not trying to tame anything. He wants everything as wild as it can be. And he's not like I don't know if he's necessarily
Yeah,
trying to
that's
climb a ladder, but he like wants power wherever it is that he goes. He wants stake of land, of business, of comfort somewhere. Like, I don't think
yeah.
he wants to be like, I want to knock out all of those European vampires and be king of the faction in the world. He's just like, I don't want anyone to bother me. I want to cause trouble however I want, and I want a bunch of candy. And I'll fight whoever gets in my way to get those.
Yeah, I didn't mean the word tame or the to like tame the West,
But like to
as in
take
like
control of, yeah.
yeah, more of like, hey, I want to be the one in charge. I want to be the top dog, the one with the most power, the one with the most influence and stuff like that. And I feel like that's kind of what he's going for of not in a sense like, hey, I want to impose some type of order on things,
Mm-hmm.
but hey, you can't fuck with me. Like I'm gonna be the most powerful one
Yes.
here. So
I think that's it because he doesn't really have any competitiveness necessarily. He just wants things in his immediate circle to be done his way.
mm-hmm.
And just like he never gets into anybody else's territory, but if somebody comes into his territory, that's when he goes to town on them.
Yeah. So I think that
Which I think
brings.
makes him
Go ahead.
No, I think that makes him like even a more interesting antagonist because it's not like he doesn't have that one set mission of gain power, fight these people. Like it's just kind of whatever he wants to do.
Or
So
at
he's kind
least
of unpredictable. Like the only
so
constant
far.
is just being seedy and eating candy canes.
Yeah. I because I think I think he is starting to get that sense of purpose though. Right? Because in the second
Mm-hmm.
volume, he's now I think the first volume was more in like Hollywood-ish area, right? I think I don't remember exactly. I'm assuming that
Oh, the
because
first
of the
volume,
movies.
it's in Colorado, in the old story,
Could
and
be
the new
wrong.
story, yeah, is in Los Angeles.
Okay, so yeah, so Los Angeles, and then we see Skinner out in Las Vegas. So he is
Mhm.
eventually moving to a new location, and in this location, he's he's basically partnered with another vampire out there. I don't know. I don't remember if they mentioned that he was the one that turned the cop's dad into the vampire, or he had no. He said he had been a
No, no, no,
vampire for
no.
a
The
long
dad was like
time.
an old Gaelic vampire.
Yeah. But so he partners with him to kind of take out these industrialists that are building this giant dam. But that wasn't really Skinner's territory, right? Like that, like so he is
Yeah.
starting to go after people and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And I don't know if we necessarily know the entire reasoning behind it yet,
Hmm.
or what it will eventually turn into.
Yeah.
But I think he's
And
starting to find his purpose of just like, here's my mission. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to take these guys out.
and for a book that's very much about lineage and family and what your past is, like we have a lot of monologues from various characters, like little bits of narration from them reflecting on something
Mm-hmm.
that happened. We're following like a family line, like the book family line. We don't know anything about Skinner's past. We don't know anything about him from like the day he robbed that train or whatever. Nothing back beyond that. So who knows? Like, did he have family once? Is there somebody out there he wants to get, find a connection to? Is there anybody he misses? Anybody who misses him?
Yeah. Maybe because we don't know, it's gonna be like, oh, I secretly had someone helping me this entire time. My sister. Ha! Who knows?
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Let's see. What do I want to talk about next? Let's talk about the artwork. Some. What did you think about the
I
artwork?
liked the artwork.
Yeah, I
It
think for the
was
most
when I
part, I really
initially
liked it as well.
when I initially picked it up, because the first story you're reading is Pearl's story.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this looks good, but this doesn't look how I would imagine a horror comic to read. And then the art style shifts a little bit as you get into the Old West story. And I'm like, okay, this is like a little shadowier, a little rougher. This looks more like what I would expect out of a horror comic.
Yeah.
And then as I kept reading, I don't know, like, I think the comic's very effective at what it's doing. And there
Mm-hmm.
are like panels where like somebody is sneaking up behind somebody else. Or like oh, like Skinner sneaks up on somebody. Like I think he sneaks up on Pearl like towards the end of the first volume and he just sort of like comes in through the curtains and like all
Just
the
appears.
fabric is
Yeah.
billowing around him through the open window. Like really neat looking panels. I don't like there's something weird about it where I'm like, this is surely very scary for those characters. Uh, I don't feel anything. Like, am
Yeah.
I scared? Am I supposed to be scared?
Yeah. I I I I definitely didn't feel like this was a particularly scary book. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there are horrific things inside it, right? Like I think you mentioned at the start, like there is some gruesome stuff that happens here, and I think as I mentioned, one of the scariest things is just this impending, like, hey, Pearl is trying to hold this back. She is holding
Mm-hmm.
on as long as she can, and we know something is going to happen, and it like all hell is just gonna break loose, and it's like that idea is just scary. But yeah, because it ends
Yeah.
up being this Western story, because it ends up being a
Yeah.
crime story, it's just swap out gangsters for vampires, and it's the exact same thing. Um,
Yeah. Like, you're right. I think it is like a a crime story, be it like more like a contemporary it is a crime story, be it like a western or like the contemporary to the time, like the mobster story or whatever, like
mhm,
shady business dealings and things like
yeah,
that. Like it's always that story. I never feel like this is a horror story. It's like this is a crime story with just like a horror setting to it, like
mhm,
a that's the themes it's using. That's the obstacles it has.
yeah,
I don't know if this has any of the traditional plot work of a horror story, except for the fact that there are vampires in it.
yeah, or at least so far. But
Mm.
I think to me the artwork got its most it leaned more into the horror when I think in the second volume,
Yeah.
when we do see Hattie locked up, right, and she's there, that is more horror based stuff, I feel
Mm.
like. There
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it was a second artist. Let me see if I can find his name here. Their name, was it Mateus Santaluco? Is that who I'm thinking of?
I I
I
thought
don't
you'd
know.
know
Where
it.
is? Let me pull it up on Comixology. Volume 2. Yeah, Mateus Santaluco, I believe.
But to kind of elaborate on what I was saying about the horror themes, I don't know if there's anybody who is vulnerable enough for long enough for me to really feel like this is so much of a horror tale. Like it's either somebody who is immediately killed or like somebody like Pearl, like a very strong protagonist.
Mhm. Yeah,
I don't know.
I think for me, it leaned more into horror. Like I said, when we see Hattie locked up in I
Yeah.
guess the basement of that gas station, whatever. I think that
Yeah.
those moments, and Mateus Santaluca, I just forgot his name and I just looked it up too. It was Mateus Santaluca. I think his artwork especially leaned into that,
Mhm.
but also when it goes, I think, more into the crime side of it. Crime also
Mhm.
has a background in noir, in very dark
Mhm.
settings, in very low light or just one big spotlight,
Yeah.
right? And I think that type of lighting works really well in a vampire story because they hide
Mhm.
in the shadows, they step out of the shadows and stuff like that. And so I think that's where it lent itself most to the horrific stuff. And then I have to say, so I was finishing up volume 2 yesterday when I was eating lunch. I went out to go get Panda Express. So I'm sitting there,
Nice.
I'm rating it on my phone, and I'm in Panda Express, and it gets to the fight scene, the big fight scene at the cave, where everyone is there. Skinner
Yeah.
Sweet is there. The older vampires are there. The detective is there with the two agents. There's this big fight. And oh god, what song was it? It was some song. But it was just like, man, if this was a movie, this would be the perfect song to play during this fight scene because it's happy and it's upbeat and it's just like it's the complete opposite of what's happening. But the song is talking about like sunshine and stuff like that. It's like, you're my sunshine, you're my, like I don't know if that was the exact song, but it's like, right, it's the irony of like there's this upbeat happy song while this horrific thing is happening, and it's vampires, so they can't go out in the sun, and the song is about like sunshine and all of this stuff and like happy stuff, and it's just like, this is,
Truly, somebody stole their sunshine.
yeah, I was like, this is great. I love this. So that was fantastic. But yeah, I think once it leans more into the action bits like that, it also
Mhm.
becomes kind of less horror in my mind, because it is these, I like, I'm a huge fan of, I don't like seeing the monster. I don't like seeing the horrific thing because I don't have to
Mhm.
imagine anything. It's all right there. But if you leave to like, I don't know exactly what's happening, what does this monster or what does this vampire actually look like, or what is he like actually doing, then my imagination starts to run, right? And I like, it's this idea of I'm scared of the unknown, and if you show
Mhm.
me, it's not scary, right? If I see a vampire fighting a vampire or something like that, it's not scary. It's just a fight scene. Um, so
Yeah.
I think that might be one of my critiques as well. We see a lot of the horrific things where I kind of like the moments where Henry walks in on the bootlegger and they're draining the guy of the blood, and we see it for like a panel and that's it.
Mhm.
It's like, ooh, that, like, I don't know what's going on there, but that was like, I don't want to know what is happening there. Like, let's go somewhere else.
I I think how blatant they are with all the vampires works because that is the premise of the story. Like, there's a new type of American vampire. So it fully displays Skinner and Pearl for you. And they are very different than vampires I've seen. Like, they get these long talonous hands where like their
Mhm.
fingers become these spikes that are like a foot long, and like Pearl's jaw unhinges, like shoots out, and she looks like, I don't know, I think like, do you remember in Beetlejuice where the ghost couple's trying to scare like Catherine O'Hara away and Gina Davis like pulls her jaw open? That's what she looks like.
Did you look at the sketches in the back of the book, because
Yeah,
they
I
they
glanced through them. I didn't look at them too close.
they detail what happens with the
Oh
jaw,
yeah.
and the like it's like the lip
Like she has
comes
a
down
new
and the
chin
jaw,
coming out of her
yeah,
mouth.
like sticks out, and it's just like, oh, that is bleh,
Yeah. Yeah,
just
yeah. And I
gross.
liked because this is so very different. I like that they're like we're being coy about it. You will have to guess about the full appearance of the vampire. It's just like, nah, here's something you've never seen before.
Yeah,
Here in bright,
big and
beautiful
bold
light. This
in the
big,
sunshine.
crazy. Oh yeah, yeah. And their long, gangly limbs, like they are. Oh, they're very. I think it's like right on that line between. Like the Buffy vampires where they just sort of get like that big brow on them and they're kind of sneering at you. There's
Hmm.
that, which is there's like a light physical transformation. And then there's like, Dracula last week where he's turning into some sort of almost wolfish creature. And this is right down the middle where it's like that is still a humanoid form, distorted as it could possibly be while still being categorized
Right?
as a humanoid form.
Yeah. Like, yeah, like there is something.
I also like
Go ahead.
No, I also like the small detail where the vampires, instead of looking in the mirror and they don't have a reflection, they look in the mirror and they have this distorted funhouse reflection.
Yeah.
I've
I
never seen anybody else do that.
I was wondering if that was dependent on how far along their transformation was. That's
Huh.
kind of what it seemed like, because I think there was another scene. I don't remember if it was Hattie or Pearl, but they look in the mirror and it shatters, like in what we just watched last week, um,
Huh.
where Dracula kind of shatters the mirror right before uh, Keanu Reeves's character looks in and sees that he's not there behind him, even though he
Oh,
knows he's
yeah.
there, right? So I'm wondering at
I
like
thought, I don't
as
think the mirror I thought the
I
mirror shattered because Dracula just like with whatever psychokinetic powers he may have, like made it shatter. Like, whoops, all you can see is cracks. You can't see the fact that I'm
yeah,
not in there at all. What a
yeah,
crazy mirror. I have that thing replaced.
yeah, that is what he did. But
Yes.
I'm wondering for this book if it like that is a thing that happened, like they not only have a reflection, but if they like it will shatter a mirror, and
Mm.
depending on like how far along the infection is, it goes from this like your normal reflection to, okay, you're starting to turn into a vampire, so it's this distorted funhouse mirror looking thing, and then when you are full vampire, it's like shatters. Who knows? I certainly don't.
Mm. Yeah.
um I had something else that I was gonna say,
I
and I
kinda
don't remember it now. uh
So the
I got
forward,
sidetracked
Stephen
with the
King is talking. I want to talk about this angle on the story. In the forward, Stephen King is talking about how vampires aren't supposed to be heartthrobs. They're not supposed to be romantic. They're not supposed to be dreamy. They're
mm-hmm.
not supposed to be someone who will protect you and watch over you. Like they are bloodthirsty monsters, and you are a fool if you believe otherwise, which I take as a personal attack against myself, Mr. King, because boy, howdy, that's my favorite thing. We were talking last week about how I love these vampire romance novels that have no horror whatsoever. The plots are like, I'm an editor at this publishing firm, and our number one novelist is this mysterious, reclusive man who writes best selling vampire romance novels. But he's such a pain to work with. He never comes to the publishing house.
Man,
I'm
he
just going to
really
go visit
sucks.
him. Oh, Yeah, it's just like, oh, you're really a vampire. You've been writing true stories the whole time. Well, I'm still your literary editor. I'm going to drag you to this literary conference because we need you to promote this new book. So, like, the vampirism means nothing. There
Right.
is no horror to it. It's just like romantic fluff you would find in any other paperback novel, just like with the thread of, he needs to bite somebody to feed. Well, I'm right here. Yeah, I guess if you need the food, what else am I going to do? Here is my vulnerable, sensual neck for you. Like, it means nothing. There is not a single ounce of monsterism in there, which is honestly the way I like it. There are the two sides of vampires. You've got this, and then you've got, like, Count Chocula and, like, soft romantic vampires on the other end, and that's where I like to live.
I like Count Chocula. He's a good vampire.
He is. He's our most friendly one. But and it's not just the violence and the bloodthirst that are thrown into the story. I think setting it back in historical times, I like seeing the same character persist through all these different decades and all these different periods of
Mm-hmm.
the American expansion, the Old West, Hollywood land, initial, just putting up the neon lights, Las Vegas. Like, that part's neat. But the farther back you get in American history, like, the seedier everything is. Like, you look at that Old West town, like, there's so much like racism and misogyny around that it's also like in Skinner's Suite, and I think that's the point of it. I think that's what they're trying to do. Like, yeah, no, he's an ancient terrible monster. You're not supposed to have any sympathy for him. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what am I doing reading all these books about a character I'm not supposed to have any sympathy for? What's the point in this?
Yeah. I think somehow there
Like,
is
it's just kind
going
of
to be.
unpleasant.
Oh, now I remember what I was going to say,
Ah,
and it kind of piggybacks off of this too. The whole idea of horror and like fear of the unknown and stuff like that. And you were like, hey, I think it works to have Skinner's Suite just be out there, be out in the sun, and here's this horrific thing for everyone to see. And yeah, I think on one hand that does work. I think at the same time, like I'm not necessarily scared of the old-fashioned vampire because I know what it is already. And so I feel like
mm,
if I was maybe told the story more from their perspective, and here is this like changing of times thing happening, we are dying out because, hey, here's this new vampire that is stronger, faster, it can be out in the sun, but there's only a few of us here in America. Like, we just have the ambassador, right? Like, they had the Russian vampire and the French vampire and
yeah.
the stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like, I'm wondering if they could somehow do it like that, where there is this big bad new monster that we get to see from time to time, but it's not, oh, that's just Skinner Sweet, he likes candy. right, like he like just some way to see the horrific trail of bodies that he's leaving behind and not get to see as much of him, but we do get to
Okay, so
see
you want him to be known
moments.
more by like repute.
Yeah,
You want him to
more
be
by
known more by
reputation.
like reputation and legend, and not know that he's this like the handsome blonde man with a candy cane.
Yeah, he's the guy wheeling and dealing at the brothel. He likes candy. He's making business deals left and right. That's just good old Skinner Sweet. No, I mean, yeah, it is. Like, on one hand, the crime fan in me is like, but I also like that. I like seeing the bad guy front and center and just being like, I
Mm,
know he's bad. I know he is a terrible person. I know he
yeah.
is a monster, and we can't get him yet. And like, so
Yes.
it's just
They're
like I
both
feel
good.
very mixed in that. Like,
They're both good threats.
yeah, like they can both work in their own right, and I Yes, since I was expecting this to be a bit more of a horror comic and not a
Mm-hmm.
crime comic, I wasn't expecting this, and it kind of threw me for a loop. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I thought.
It, to sort of put a to finalize what I was saying earlier, like I do like the soft romantic vampire, but I do also like horror. I can take a lot of gore and monstrous things. Like that I'm okay. It's not my favorite variant of this, but I can sure take it.
Mhm.
But like the fact that there's so much social monstrosity also going on, I'm like, show me all the blood and guts you want, but please stop insulting the Mexican sheriff of this town.
Yeah,
Like that stuff. I'm like, oh great. Oh, I have to deal with this now.
yeah,
Just more blood splatter, please. That is more appeasing to me than any of this is.
yeah. More blood and guts, please.
Yeah.
Sweet. I don't know. Let me see if Wikipedia says how many. Blah blah blah. Number of issues 34. 11
Oh
ongoing for
wow.
second cycle. Also 12 issues in miniseries, one shots, and anthologies. I think we read what the first 10 issues. Is that right?
I think about that,
Recall.
and the end of volume 2 has a preview of the next volume, which is in World War II. And I think I also saw an ad for a volume after that that gets into like the 1960s.
Okay, yeah. So there's
So I wonder.
34 issues in the main series, and then starting in 2014, there was like a second series called Second Cycle, American Vampire Second
Mm,
Cycle, and that went on for 11. And then yeah, like they said, there was just a number of one shots and side stories and stuff like that. So we actually ended up reading a good chunk of this,
mm.
more than I thought. We almost read the first third. So it
No.
in terms of that, then if we, for I guess lack of better terms or a better way to handle it, if this is the first act of the
Mm.
story, how, like, does that change the way you think about it, or
I
I just feel like
think
it's missing something?
this
Feel
comes up a little bit. This comes up a little bit where the vassals come to Pearl and essentially they say, "You are a monster. Like, you are an abomination against God. Even if we realize you are trying to live this quiet little life here, we still don't like you, but we are willing to permit you to live as you will because you are the only person that can tell us what Skinner Sweet's weakness is. Like, there's only the two of them right now in this class of vampire. It's just Skinner and Pearl,
right,
and each of them knows how to kill the other one. And I like that they got that on each other. Like, neither of them seems like Skinner oddly doesn't, like, he's not trying to create a coven or anything like that. He's not trying to create a clan. He doesn't want Pearl to follow him, to be his. Like, he was just sort of like, huh, wouldn't it be funny if I tried to make another vampire? There you go. You're a vampire like me now.
yeah.
Have fun. Like, he just
You're in the
does it
army
and
now.
like takes off. Yeah. And she also doesn't like, she hates him, but she isn't necessarily like, I am out to kill my maker. Like, they're just sort of,
She ends up
I don't
protecting
care what
him,
you do. I'm going to go live my own life. Yeah.
but I feel like deep down it's more to protect her, because she knows once they kill him, well, then they're just gonna come after me,
Mm.
which I guess they also don't know about Hattie. Left is she must be one
Yeah.
of the new American vampires too, especially if she used Hattie's blood
Yeah. Oh,
too.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. So she is the third in this line, but like, I don't think the larger
We don't know
vampire
about
world
her.
knows she was created. Like, she's still kind of a secret over there.
Okay.
But yeah, like, there's a certain group of vampires that like Hattie. What's Pearl? Pearl, I assume, would want to kill Hattie for her own safety. But like, I don't know how Hattie feels about Skinner. Skinner and Pearl don't really care about killing each other, but they all have, I know how the rest of you can be taken down. And that threat, I think, is really interesting. I don't actively want to kill you, but I know exactly how. And someday somebody's going to come to me and ask.
Yeah. Or I guess we also don't know if they truly do know, right? Because it like
Yeah.
there was the whole thing about Hattie being locked up in the basement, and they are testing all of these. Like, hey, all vampires have some kind of naturalistic weakness to some naturally
Hmm.
occurring element, and the guy that was holding her captive is just one by one. Okay, here's oxygen, here's this, here's that, here's the,
There's oxygen.
Okay, well, okay, you know what
Could
I
you
mean.
imagine? Could you imagine if you were a vampire and your weakness is not like silver or pine or something? It's like, it's just boron. It's just like a loose element.
Right? I mean, hey,
Something
like
really mundane.
that. Yeah, just like it's table salt, right? Um, it's
Pepper, weirdly enough. Can't
right,
have pepper.
but well, pepper's not an element. But so my point is there is some naturally
Yeah.
occurring element that he was testing just one by one. Is it this? Is it that? And he never reached it. He never found out what it was. So
Yeah.
Hattie might have, from what we're told, Skinner Sweet has been around the longest. So by experience, he might know. But then there's
Yeah. And
Hattie, who is the one that we've seen come into contact with the most things. So by an educated guess, she might know the best. But then there's Pearl, and we
Mhm.
don't know necessarily what all of her experience has been. She might know, but she might not know.
she, well, didn't she tell? No, I think she told Abelina, and didn't Abelina tell Felicia, and that's how Felicia knows I'm gonna melt down my locket and use that to make the bullets.
But
I
that
think
was
Pearl
that
knows
was
what her weakness is, and
right. It was a golden bullet.
yeah, Pearl knows her weakness, whether that's through like an
It
experience
wasn't
or if that's like some sort of instinctual thing
wasn't
you
it
know
Henry
once you
though?
are turned.
Wasn't it Henry who went to
Hmm?
them the next day and was like, "Hey, I know she's
Oh,
not going to tell you, but I fear for my wife's
maybe.
safety, so I'll give you the information as long as you stay away from us." I believe he
That might have been it,
did
yeah.
that. So I is it gold though, or is that just do have
It's
has there
Skinner's
been
at least.
has there been precedent for vampire stories in the past of like, hey, they don't like gold?
No, I think it's always either cold iron, silver, maybe, garlic, wood. I think somebody
Holy
mentions
water.
pine, and that struck a chord with me as being familiar. Like, I think I have read
They mention
somewhere.
a lot of wood stuff. That's
Yeah,
how
like
Hattie
pine is
got
among
out.
the stronger things to defeat a vampire with for some reason. And
I'm I'm wondering if it's also a similar thing because they got the gold from her locket, right? Uh,
mm,
and this is me speculating, but again, we watched Dracula last week here on the show. They make mention of like, hey, it doesn't necessarily need to be like a Christian symbol, right? It just needs
yeah,
to be something that you really believe in. So I'm wondering if
yes.
this locket is like it's the bond of like, hey, this is someone I love, or I believe in Book's mission here, and I'm gonna make a bullet out of this locket in which I kept his picture. So maybe it was something like that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Someone out there is like, no, you idiots. You obviously haven't read the whole thing. To which I say, well, duh. So there we go.
This is one of my favorite parts of any kind of supernatural mythology is the working of like what materials give you weakness and give you power and what you can use with things and like the
Right. Yeah.
different elements in which something can destroy you and just like all different woods do different things, different metals do different things, different
Mhm.
stones, different elements. This works for me in any kind of supernatural or fantasy story. It's one of my
Cool. Yeah.
faves.
Yeah. I thought it was fascinating. Fascinating stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
anything else to say about the book or the story, the artwork? Something else you might want to talk
I think
about
it's a
we missed?
it's a pretty finely constructed book. It ain't for everybody.
Yeah, I
It
I
is, like I was saying, a real intense take on the vampire. So if you are like me and you're more aligned to like the more handsome, brooding love interest sort of vampire, this might not be for you.
um I do want to say please check out more of Scott Snyder's work. He has a fantastic run on Batman. He also has another horror book called Witches, and that absolutely is a
Mm.
horror
Ooh,
book.
ooh.
I have read the first volume of that in the past, and it is scary. Pledged is pledged. You'll know what that means if you read the book. But yeah, this was his first creator owned thing.
Mhm.
This was his first time making a like major comic that was not published by Marvel or DC. Um, and so I don't know how far along into his career this is, but I mentioned at the top of this. I don't know if the book necessarily completely found its
Mhm.
footing by the end of these first two
Mhm.
volumes. I think it's on its way there, um, like
Yeah.
absolutely on its on its way there. Uh, I don't want to say this is a freshman effort because I don't know how far along in his career this is, but
Mhm.
considering I've read more recent Scott Snyder work and I love his work. I feel like I could see him working out some stuff, if that makes sense, working out some ideas, or
Mhm.
how do I structure these stories, or how do I do stuff like that. So take that as you will. But that is all I have to say on this book.
Yeah.
Melissa, are
Yes.
you going to continue this vampire trend that we kind of started by accident, or do you have
uh
other horror stuff?
I have other spooky pitches. These do not have vampires in
Okay.
them. I'm
I,
gonna take a little break from that.
I
I've
was like, what if there's gonna be an unspoken like this is just vampire month?
Welcome to Vampire Month. Welcome to Vamptober. Now, I have three movies. One
Okay.
is a classic horror movie. One is kind of a spooky mystery themed comedy, and the third one is a spooky young adult adventure for Halloween for the
Okay.
kids and for families of all ages.
There you go.
So, pitch number one, this is a movie I watched last night, so I thought, why not throw it into the pitches? And my homework's already done for the week. The Shining.
Okay. The Shining is a
Stanley Kubrick's
classic.
classic The Shining from I think 1980. Again, based on a Stephen King work very loosely. I know he's not a fan of this adaptation.
I
Family
didn't
moves
know that.
into a hotel, massive hotel deep in the mountains in Colorado to be the winter caretakers. They're there all alone for 5 months over the winter in this building filled with haunted memories that end up
Mm-hmm.
infecting the family, or maybe there was darkness already in there to begin with before they even got to the hotel. A movie with a lot, very, very craftfully done, full of little details, full of conspiracy theories around the movie about what different things mean and how different things are put together.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's pitch number one. Pitch number two is a favorite of mine. This is the movie Clue,
Oh,
based on
that's a
the
good
hit
one.
board game. Yes. So this is a fantastic comedy about six people with color-coded code names that get called to a mansion for mysterious reasons, and the host dies, and the butler's like, one of you must have did it. Why were all of you called here? And it's just a big madcap whodunit. It's got
Yep.
Tim Curry, the classic, Madeline Kahn, who we'll remember from watching Young Frankenstein last year, Michael McKean, always a treat, Martin Mull, so many people.
And there's
Jane
multiple
Weedland from
endings,
the Go-Go's.
right? Isn't there
Yes,
multiple
yes,
endings?
because the board game Clue can have any kind of result to it based on the randomization of the cards. They released this in theaters. This did not do well in theaters.
Yeah.
This became like a cult hit on the home video market. You would go to the theater and get any one of three different endings. So you'd watch it and go talk to your friends about it, and they might have seen something completely different. But I have the DVD that
That's
has, you
kind of
can
neat,
watch it with a
though.
randomized ending, or you can watch them all string together. Yeah.
That's kind of fascinating, though, that different theaters show different endings, right? And you can be like, what ending did you get? Oh my god, that's not the one I got. What happened? Oh my god.
Yeah, it's our first gachapon movie, first
Right?
and only. There's truly nothing like this, and it is
Loot
a
boxes
real
were a
treat
movie.
for this Halloween season.
Yeah, it's a
Mm-hmm.
good one. Fun fact: there's a comic book adaptation. I don't
What?
know if it's an adaptation of the movie or if it's just like, hey, we're gonna take the same premise and just make it into a comic book. But yeah, I heard decent things. It's one of those things like if you really love that film
Mm.
and you're not looking for like a real serious mystery novel and maybe not the best writing, but just like, hey, if you're looking for something fun and cheesy and just like, yeah, like there is a good adaptation of that out there in comic book form.
Ooh, interesting.
So
I've
pitch
never
number
heard of this.
3.
Pitch number three is a return pitch from last year. You turned this down, and I thought, Kyle, what a mistake. So here it comes back. This is the movie Paranorman. This is a
Okay.
stop motion animated film from Studio Leica, who made Coraline and Kubo and the Two Strings. This was their sophomore feature, I believe. And this is the story about a young boy who has the ability to talk to ghosts. And he lives in this little New England town that had like a witch hunt in it
Mm-hmm.
centuries ago. And he angers the spirits, and the whole town, like something makes come alive. And so the whole town is overrun by these like pilgrim zombies. And he's the only person that can try and talk to the spirits, calm them down, and, save his town from being overrun. It's a really fun, just like good, goofy Halloween movie. I like it a lot. It's very well done. Like, it's a real fun
Okay.
adventure, and like it's got a very good emotional, heartwarming side to it too. This is a movie I almost never hear anybody talking about, but I think it's a real strong one.
Okay. Pitch number 1
Yeah.
was The Shining.
Yes.
Pitch number 2 was Clue. Pitch number 3, Paranorman. I think those are some good picks. Let me see. What one do I
Yeah,
want
quite
to
a variety.
do? Yeah. I think yeah. I think in for the sake of variety, I'm gonna go with Paranorman. Because we had the
Nice.
like spooky, actually kind of scary Dracula. Then we had this comic, which is a horror comic, but maybe more of a crime or western show. It just has a spooky monster
Mm-hmm.
put in there. But now we can do something for the whole family. Paranorman.
Yes.
I say we watch that.
Yeah, that's
That'll
a
be
good
fun.
choice.
Yeah.
Here in the middle of the month, let's go for a family fun, a friendly feature for all ages. It truly is.
There you go. Good spooks for the whole family.
Mm
Let's
hmm.
see. I think that about wraps us up. Melissa, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WilkyWit. That's WILKYWIT. And I just did a guest spot on another podcast. There's a James Bond podcast called Spectre. I was just on there talking about Moonraker, which is the most delightful, cheesy cornball of a movie. So for almost 3 hours, you can hear me and the host
Nice.
cap everything Moonraker.
Nice. That sounds like a lot of fun. I am at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter and Instagram. I don't remember if I put the social media things up before, so if I did, they're up there a second time. I'm at Yo Kyle Springer. We are at the Whatnauts on Twitter, and I believe that is all. We will get out of here. We will be watching Paranorman next week on episode 79. This has been episode 78 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
For the party peoples. I don't need Discord up anymore. There we go. Okay. I just had a brain fart and completely forgot what I was about to say and how to start the show. So I was
we do show now. Hi.
Hi, welcome to show.
Get us. We show.
Thank you so much for checking out that video. We hope you liked it. If you did, leave a comment below. Tell us how you guys liked American Vampire. That being, I just forgot what I was going to say, and it's the same thing every single time on these things. Go subscribe to our channel, because it is right up there, and go watch one of our videos right down here. We got all sorts of podcasts for you to check out, besides the review show, which is what you were just watching today. So go check those things out, and we would love you long time. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.